Today, we will be looking at two horrifying caving stories that went horribly wrong. The first story is the first ever caving tragedy to occur in the year 2025. As for the second one, it follows a cave explorer who dares to return to the very place she was once rescued from, only to descend into a nightmare far worse than before. As always, viewer discretion is advised. On a Sunday afternoon in January 19th, 2025, the limestone caves of North Yorkshire's Ribblesdale became the scene of a tragic accident that would remind the caving community of the inherent dangers present in their beloved underground world. What began as a routine exploration of Diccan Pot, a well-known cave system near Sellside, turned into a disaster real quick. Diccan Pot sits within the extensive cave network that includes Long Churn Cave and a Loom Pot, forming part of one of Yorkshire's most significant underground systems. Located in the limestone-rich landscape of Horton and Ribblesdale, this area has long attracted cavers from across Britain and beyond, drawn by its deep pitches, complex passages, and challenging technical requirements. The cave system's first pitch presents an immediate challenge to those entering, a vertical drop of 100 feet, 30 meters, that requires proper rope work and careful technique. Unlike some cave entrances where visibility allows surface observers to monitor descending cavers, Diccan Pot's configuration includes a traverse that effectively blinds those at the surface to what lies below. January 19, 2025, was a cold winter day in the Yorkshire Dales, perfect for outdoor activities. A group of experienced cave explorers met that morning, knowing both the joys and dangers of exploring caves. Winter cave trips need extra planning because the daylight hours are shorter, the surface conditions can be more difficult, and staying warm underground becomes very important. The group walked toward Diccan Pot and began their usual safety checks before going down. They checked their equipment, looked at their ropes carefully, and adjusted their harnesses with great care because this attention to detail keeps cavers safe. The limestone cave entrance opened before them like a giant mouth, promising both adventure and challenge. Getting to the first pitch required careful walking and complete focus, as each step along the limestone ledges had to be planned and secure. This cave system had a special design, where once a spelunker started the traverse and began going down, they would disappear from sight of their teammates above. The person going down would vanish into the rocky depths with only the rope connecting them to the world above. At 12:27 in the afternoon, the important moment came as the group took their positions around the first pitch of Diccan Pot. Each person had a job in this carefully planned descent, while the caver going down did his final equipment checks and tested his rappelling device. He felt the usual mix of excitement and respect that always comes before dropping into a 100-foot, 30-meter hole carved from solid limestone. The rope stretched tight over the edge and disappeared into the darkness below, while the team members above stayed in their positions, listening for calls that would show progress. They watched the rope for small movements that told them their friend was making his way down safely. The cave seemed to swallow both light and sound, creating a feeling of tension as talking became harder with each foot of the descent. Minutes passed slowly with that stretched feeling of time that happens during technical cave work. The person going down focused completely on his technique, controlling how fast he went down and checking his anchor points to keep his movement smooth and controlled. Above, his teammates waited with special alertness as they watched over someone whose life depended on their attention. Then, without any warning, everything changed when a loud bang suddenly broke the quiet, with a sound that was strong and clear. The team members above heard it easily as it cut through the cave's natural sound patterns like a sharp knife through silence. In the confined acoustic environment of a cave system, sounds can be amplified, distorted, or muffled depending on the specific geological configurations, but the group recognized immediately that something was wrong. When the team members above attempted to communicate with their colleague below, they were met with silence. Their next action followed standard cave rescue protocols. They tested the rope system to assess the situation. What they discovered was deeply concerning. The rope had become taut, suggesting that their teammate might be suspended on the line, potentially injured, and unable to respond to their calls. The configuration of Diccan Pot, with its traverse preventing direct visual contact with the pitch bottom, meant that the surface team could not quickly assess their colleague's condition. This limitation, while a natural feature of the cave, created additional urgency in an already critical situation. Without being able to see what had occurred, the team faced the challenging decision of whether to attempt an immediate rescue descent or to call for professional assistance. Understanding their limitations and the potential severity of the situation, the group made the crucial decision to call for help from CRO. The Cave Rescue Organization represents one of Britain's most specialized and capable volunteer rescue services. These teams combine technical ropework expertise, medical training, and intimate knowledge of local cave systems to respond to incidents that would challenge even professional emergency services. When the call came in from Diccan Pot, CRO members would have immediately begun mobilizing both personnel and the specialized equipment needed for a potential technical rescue from depth. The rescue team arrived carrying heavy rescue packs filled with ropes, pulleys, stretchers, and medical supplies needed for deep cave rescues. At the cave entrance, the rescuers quickly set up their rope systems. They drove strong metal anchors into the limestone rock and tested each connection carefully. The rescue team leader rappelled down the 100-foot pitch first, carrying a headlamp that cut through the complete darkness below. His light beams swept across the cave floor as he descended, searching for any sign of the missing caver. When the rescuer reached the bottom, his worst fears were confirmed. The caver lay motionless on the rocky floor where he had fallen. The rescue team member immediately checked for a pulse, listened for breathing, and looked for any signs of life, but found none. Using his radio, he called up to his teammates above with the devastating news. More rescue team members rappelled down to help. They worked together to carefully move the explorer onto a special rescue stretcher designed for caves. The stretcher had to be secured tightly because it would need to be hauled straight up through the narrow cave opening. The team attached multiple ropes to the stretcher and connected it to a powerful pulley system they had set up at the surface. The most difficult part came next, lifting the stretcher 100 feet, 30 meters, straight up through the cave. Team members at the surface pulled on the ropes while others guided the stretcher to prevent it from hitting the cave walls. The process took hours of careful, steady work. Every few feet, they had to stop and adjust the ropes to make sure the stretcher stayed level and secure. Finally, after many hours of exhausting work, the rescue team successfully brought the caver to the surface. Yorkshire Ambulance Service paramedics were waiting there, but they could only confirm what the rescue team already knew, that nothing could be done to save him. The 170 volunteer hours logged for this incident reflect not just the immediate response and recovery operation, but the comprehensive nature of cave rescue work. These hours encompass the initial call-out and travel time, the technical work of accessing and recovering the casualty, the coordination with other emergency services including Yorkshire Ambulance Service, YAS, paramedics. The Cave Rescue Organization's statement that they hoped the deceased's family will find comfort in the fact that he was doing what he enjoyed so much speaks to a fundamental aspect of high-risk recreational activities. Those who choose to explore caves do so, knowing the risks involved, driven by passion for discovery, challenge, and the unique experiences that underground exploration provides. In this next story, the only thing that the trapped cave explorer could think of, even after years of caving as a professional, was to never enter a cave ever again. On Saturday, December 14th, 2024, the exploration team assembled at the entrance to the Bueno Fonteno cave system near Bergamo, Italy, in the pre-dawn hours. 9 experienced cave explorers, led by 32-year-old speleologist Ottavia Piana, prepared for what should have been a routine mapping expedition into the uncharted sections of the vast limestone network. The Bueno Fonteno system was already well documented across 19 kilometers, 11.8 miles, of mapped passages, but countless unexplored chambers and tunnels beckon beyond the known limits. Piana, despite having been rescued from this same cave system just 17 months earlier after breaking her leg, remained undeterred in her passion for underground exploration. The team descended through the familiar entrance passages and made their way toward the unexplored sections. The cave's temperature held steady at 10 degrees Celsius, 50 degrees Fahrenheit, requiring careful attention to hypothermia prevention during extended underground stays. 4 kilometers, 2.5 miles from the surface, the team reached the boundary between charted and uncharted territory. Here, the passages narrowed dramatically, twisting through limestone formations that had remained untouched by human exploration. Progress was methodical, Each step forward required careful testing of handholds and footholds. At approximately 4:30 p.m., the cave betrayed them. Piana was testing a seemingly solid ledge, her full weight committed to the step, when the rock cracked with a sound like breaking bones. The formation, weakened by countless years of water erosion, gave way beneath her feet. Time compressed into horrifying slow motion. Her teammates watched helplessly as she clawed desperately at the crumbling rock face, fingernails scraping uselessly against stone as gravity claimed her. She plummeted 5 meters, 16.4 feet, through absolute blackness, her body rotating helplessly before slamming into the jagged limestone floor below. The impact resonated through the cave like a gunshot, the sickening sound of an impact, followed by the wet sound of a body settling into unnatural stillness and silence. Her teammates scrambled to establish an anchor. The first rescuer rappelled down. As he did, he could hear low moans of agony and despair. The scene below was a nightmare. Piana lay crumpled against the chamber wall. Her left knee was twisted completely wrong, the joint swollen to twice its normal size and bent at an impossible angle. When she tried to speak, her words came out as unintelligible mumbles through what appeared to be multiple facial fractures. Her eyes, when they occasionally focused, held the glassy look of severe trauma and impending shock. All they could understand her saying was, "Never again, never again." The remaining team members stared at each other in the weak glow of their headlamps, the magnitude of their situation crushing down like the tons of rock above them. 4 kilometers of unmapped, treacherous cave passages separated them from the surface. No cell phone signal could penetrate the limestone barrier. Radio calls dissolved into static. Panic began to set in. Time was bleeding away as surely as Piana was bleeding into the cave floor. Every minute of delay decreased her chances of survival, yet any attempt to move her could prove fatal. The team leader made the agonizing decision. The strongest one would make a desperate solo run to the surface, abandoning Piana with minimal medical support in a race against time and hypothermia. At 5:45 p.m., he began the nightmarish journey through 4 kilometers of unmapped passages, crawling, climbing, and scrambling through darkness with only the knowledge that seconds could mean the difference between rescue and recovery of a body. He reached the surface at 8:20 p.m., stumbling from the cave entrance. The Italian National Alpine and Speleological Rescue Corps, CNSS, received the emergency call as darkness settled over the Bergamo Hills. The caller's voice breaking with exhaustion and desperation as he tried to convey the gravity of the situation 4 kilometers underground. Chaos erupted at the CNSS command center. Officers who had managed cave rescues for decades recognized the horrific complexity of the situation immediately. Specialized equipment was loaded into vehicles with frantic efficiency. Cave rescue stretchers, medical supplies rated for extended underground operations, rope systems, and communication equipment. All while knowing that every minute of preparation was another minute that Piana lay bleeding in the darkness below. The first rescue teams reached Piana's location at 8 a.m. the next day, December 15th, nearly 16 hours after the accident. Medical assessment confirmed multiple facial fractures, broken ribs, and a severely damaged knee. More concerning was the risk of internal bleeding and the onset of hypothermia after a night in the 10 degrees Celsius 50 degrees Fahrenheit environment. Piana was carefully secured to a specialized rescue stretcher, her injuries stabilized as much as possible given the challenging conditions. The journey began with teams of 6 rescuers working in carefully coordinated movements. Every 90 minutes, the entire operation paused for medical evaluation and team rotation. In the confined spaces of the cave, rescuer fatigue could prove fatal. A single mistake could endanger not just the victim, but the entire rescue party. She wasn't responding properly, but all they could hear her saying was, "Never again, never again." By the 3rd day, December 16th, rescue teams encountered their first major obstacle, a passage completely blocked by fallen limestone. The geological instability that had caused Piana's accident continued to threaten the rescue operation. Rocks shifted unpredictably as teams passed, creating new hazards with each hour. Rescue coordinators made the difficult decision to use small explosive charges to clear the blocked passage. Each blast was carefully calculated, enough force to move the obstructing rocks without destabilizing the surrounding formations. The cleared passage revealed new challenges. Water seepage had created slick surfaces that made footing treacherous. The rescue teams attached fixed ropes along the route, creating handholds for the dozens of rescuers who would need to navigate the same path. Concern mounted as Piana's condition showed signs of deterioration. 3 days underground, even with medical support, was pushing the boundaries of human endurance. Her core body temperature was dropping, despite thermal blankets and chemical heating pads. The risk of pneumonia from her rib injuries increased with each passing hour in the humid cave environment. On December the 17th, rescue coordinators accelerated the operation, bringing in fresh teams and extending working shifts. The telephone cable network now stretched the full 4 kilometers, 2.5 miles, allowing constant communication between the surface command post and the rescue teams. The teams worked through the night and made steady progress. Now it was Wednesday, December 18th, 2024. At 1:30 a.m., rescue teams reached the boundary between uncharted and mapped territory. The familiar passages of the known cave system offered wider spaces and established routes, but 2 kilometers, 1.2 miles of challenging terrain still separated them from the surface. Progress accelerated through the mapped sections. Rescue teams had pre-positioned equipment and established supply caches throughout the known passages. The stretcher moved more quickly through chambers where every obstacle had been documented and planned for. At 6 a.m., 12 hours ahead of the most optimistic projections, rescue teams emerged from the cave entrance carrying Piana into the dawn light. She had traveled 4 kilometers, 2.5 miles, through unmapped underground passages over 4 days, supported by 159 volunteers who had worked around the clock in some of the most challenging rescue conditions imaginable. Piana was immediately transported to a regional hospital for treatment of her multiple fractures. Medical evaluation confirmed the severity of injuries that had been treated for 4 days in the challenging cave environment. Multiple rib fractures and extensive knee damage. After treatment, she started speaking slowly. Her first sentence was that she would never enter a cave again. The rescue operation had consumed 96 hours of continuous effort, involved 159 specialized volunteers, and required the establishment of 4 kilometers, 2.5 miles, of communication cables through previously unexplored cave passages. The operation stood as one of the most technically challenging cave rescues in recent European history. For Piana, the ordeal marked the end of her caving career. The woman who had dedicated years to underground exploration emerged from the earth with a firm resolution never to enter a cave again. The Bueno Fonteno system, which had twice claimed her as a victim, would remain forever associated with both the allure and the mortal danger of pushing the boundaries of human exploration into the hidden depths beneath our feet.